All right, the ayes have it. Treasurer's report. Do we have Mr. Jeff here tonight?
No, Jeff's sick and
Yeah.
Lindy, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he did a quick one. He's sick. And in April, there was $100 that he spent on dues or something like that. And then in the bank, there is $9,525.
Alrighty.
And I got the live stream rolling now too. I didn't start it earlier.
Thanks, Keith.
All right. We don't have to vote that one, right?
No,
Okay. Okay, a membership report. Karen, I'm sorry,
Janet.
Janet.
We have 299 paid up members.
Very nice. Thank you for your help, Janet. Club hives. You're on the spot again, Lindy.
Yeah, and I just took a bite of food.
That's okay. Finish up. We'll wait.
Go figure. Yes, so we have 3 hives and they're still rocking and rolling. There is definitely an issue with either wind or possibly a critter, but there's one hive on the end that's not on planks that tipped over again. I just happened to be going there and dropping off equipment, and luckily, so I righted it up and all the bees were in it. So I'm gonna go Saturday to check. I'll probably do the first sentinel sampling. And I'll check and make sure the queen's kind of still rocking and rolling as well.
Okay.
Lindy, are there enough bricks there to go ahead and put that one on the landscape timbers? Or do we need more bricks down there as well?
It was on cinder blocks.
The other stand has it set up on cinder blocks on top of.
It has cinder blocks and then the hive, and then it's on timbers, and then I have it strapped to the block. So I think it's just a bigger kind of. Those haven't blown over, but this is the second time actually this one's blown over. So I took it off of the cinder blocks and it's just on
the stone.
Yeah, it's just there, and then I strapped it and put
I guess the point I'm trying to get to, I have more blocks and I have landscape timbers.
I think that would be the best
down there. Are there
the
2
timbers. Yep.
So I'll bring that down and get it set up on it.
Okay. Yeah, so that's that.
Right, that's all. That's what we have for the club hives. Perfect. Thank you, Lindy. Appreciate it. All right, Mr. Andy, our mentor coordinator.
Best job ever. We've got 16 new beekeepers, 3 new since last meeting. We've got 19 awesome mentors, 3 new since last meeting, and I'm gonna name names now. Since last meeting, Ryan Merritt, Emily LePennon, and Averill Rue all volunteered to be mentors. Awesome spirit. Now, just one quick little story before I go, how easy this job is. Somebody asked for a mentor. I sent the broadcast out. You guys all got it. Then 15 minutes, I had a volunteer and I was able to respond same night with a mentor to a new beekeeper. So just what a treat to work with all of you. That's my report.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it. Just one thing, Andy, I'd like to add. I got a new phone. I lost all my contacts. Could you just text me at some point? Doesn't have to be tonight, just so I have your number again.
Sure, I'd be glad to do that.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it.
How many mentees was there? I'm sorry.
16 mentees and 19 mentors.
Thank you so much. Thanks
Perfect.
for your work.
It's no work at all. Thanks to you guys.
Well, thank you for everything you do, Andy. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's my great pleasure.
Thank you.
Andy, do you have any idea where people are finding out about the mentee program from? You know,
Yes,
did
I think.
people talk about going to classes and stuff?
Yes, is at classes. The honey exchange, I think, is making the recommendation because they come in waves. I get them like within 1 or 2 nights that they seem to sign up, which is wonderful. I had one person who's been keeping bees for 4 years successfully, wanted some help and asked for a mentor. And I said, well, we've been trying to have them be for first-year beekeepers. Would you be willing to be a mentor? And right away she said, sure, sign me up, which is just great. It's just a great example of how people, we don't need to be experts. We can just help each other out. She phrased it well. She said, I'm happy to be a beekeeping buddy. I can Google and I can empathize and I can share my own experience, which is just perfect. It's a really nice kind of a community flavor. We're all in this together. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, that's good. Old business, last meeting, I guess the 9th was a open hive, weather permitting, at the club hives, but you guys had to go on the 10th, right, Lindy? Because it was raining.
We did it that Sunday. It was great, actually. There was quite a few people that showed up in the afternoon, so I think it was good.
Good. Did we get, it was mentioned, Andy mentioned adding a link to the Zoom meetings.
I tried.
Yes, that was done. It was fabulous. Very helpful. Thank you.
Good.
Oh, for the open hive, that was what you were talking about, Andy?
Well, I had suggested for this meeting, we were getting the Google Calendar invite, which is terrific help, but it didn't have the link in it. And so I had suggested, why don't you put the Zoom link in the meeting event, so when we get the reminder of the meeting, it'll have the link in there. That's just what happened. It makes it really easy.
Good idea.
I'm sorry, I didn't know about the open hive invite. I shouldn't have spoken to that.
That's okay. You already mentioned, Lindy, the Sentinel Club.
Yeah, so that starts this month for the club hives. And I was going to send out, I was on vacation last week, so I haven't had time to reach out to the people that had volunteered to help out with that. But it'll be a monthly sampling, and basically sending it in for testing of varroa mites, various viruses, mostly nosema. And then the first 2 months, they're actually doing a new thing where we're going to sample the pollen and send that in, and they're going to test it for pesticides.
Nice.
That'll be
For some of the newer people, Lindy, could you just elaborate a little bit on the Sentinel program, how that's done?
sure. It's a community science, I guess they call it, gathering of information, Be Informed partnership, BIP. I can I'll send out the link and stuff to that later. But yeah, they gather information, they provide information on, beekeeping and diseases, and the Sentinel program is specifically for helping out with testing for varroa mites and just that process.
Now, with the samples, like on the bee samples, Lindy, is that something like you do and like everybody should be doing when they do a mite wash with alcohol? Is that what you got to do for a sample?
Yeah, yep. It's, you basically take your half cup of bees, put it in a bottle that they have already shipped to me. You kind of label, you can sign up for different hives. So you register, you pay, I think it was like $300 for the service of 4 hives, and you send it in and they do all the analysis of everything. And I think Janet Anchor had done it before, and what her comment was is that it kind of helps you become a better beekeeper, because it's kind of, you go through the process of, they have a pretty detailed checklist of how you're going through the hive. And I just thought it would be a really good educational opportunity at the hives.
That's really good.
It is a little expensive, but
Well,
maybe
if
next year we can offer scholarships because we seem to be floating in cash. So
good, I mean, we get it, like a handful of people you have, get those people educated on it, and then they can share with the rest of the club and stuff.
Yep. The big thing is they do all the analysis and they do NOSEMA testing and other, I haven't read completely through it. Janet, do you know if they test for other diseases besides NOSEMA?
They have not in the past. I don't know if they're planning to. I just skimmed what they're doing this year. They're not going to do NOSEMA every month this year. They're only going to do it every other month, but they'll do Varroa
Right.
every month.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. It really makes you monitor your bees. It's usually a little shocking to see what they find. And we should share the results because I think that will inspire people also to monitor their bees more. They're pretty thorough. They give you a count of exactly how many bees were in your sample. They tell you how many drones were in the sample. They tell you whether they found a queen in the sample, which we hope that's always 0. And they've got a nice graph, of what's the threshold and what are your various colonies at. So it's good.
Nice.
They did have they had an intro thing last night, a Zoom, and I believe they recorded the informational part of it. So when that link comes out, I'll blast it out to people so that everybody can watch it. It was good. It was informative, and they're based out of Maryland,
Nice.
University.
It's nice to see what comes back for information on all the hives.
Yep.
See how they're doing.
You can. I put a link to the Sentinel apiary program in the chat, and
Awesome.
The good thing is you can look at not just our colonies, but the colonies of everybody who's participating in the study this year. So there's a map of the US. You can click on a state, click on a county, and if it's lit up, then there's somebody participating in there. You can see what their counts are. It's always sort of fun to be smug and say, well, our counts are lower than your counts until they're not.
Right. Of course they're doing it. Come on, be positive. Alrighty. Did I miss anything in old business? Anybody? Oh, okay. New business. We had Paul Gillis was in, and he was talking about swarm management. I'm sorry, that's Mike McNally. My bad. I got the names mixed up. What was Paul Gillis?
I think Paul also did something in the chat tonight. He was asking you about access to the Google Calendar. And Keith, I don't know if you might be able to elaborate on that. I don't know if you have to always be invited or.
Yeah, you have to be invited to it. And right now the invitation is out to the Google group. So if we send it out to the group again, you just basically have to click on it. But if you search the emails, past emails for the invite, it should pop up, and then you can join.
Well,
yeah, I know that on mine. I have a Google Gmail. I just sign into my Google account, and the club meeting shows up automatically on my calendar.
I have you invited specifically as well, though, so that's probably.
Oh no, on my personal email.
right.
If you're subscribed to a calendar, it'll show up when you look at your calendar.
Right. Did that help, Paul?
Yeah, I'll go search for the link. I didn't have the link and I was looking to do it. So I'll search for that, and if I have a problem, I'll reach out to probably Keith, I guess.
Okay.
The other thing I had last meeting was an open hive up at the Shaker Village in New Gloucester, June 25th, I believe it is, at
Yep.
2 in the afternoon. So it's not the usual 10 in the morning, it's more in the afternoon.
Yeah, I did put that on the CCBA club calendar. I just haven't sent out an invite yet because usually I kind of wait for the week before before sending that out. But it is on there.
That makes sense. Okay.
Okay. There will be no live meetings in July and August here at Moody's because they're doing construction. They're adding on to both ends of their building. So for safety's sake, Mrs. Moody has asked that we not come in for July and August, which I told her that's fine. We don't typically have a live meeting anyway, so we'll just Zoom it like we did in the past. And if anybody still wants to do a meeting for July and August, we could just do a regular Zoom meeting like we have in the past.
Yeah,
'cause I mean, pre-COVID, we weren't even meeting during those months anyway.
Right.
Right.
And as we started Zooming it, we started holding them. So, we can figure that out next month if we want to.
Right. And last month, our speaker was Mike McNally from the Saginaw Club, and he was talking about spring management and swarm suppression. I thought that was some pretty good information that we had last month, and I hope everybody come away with something good to do with their bees from it. Hopefully everything good to do with it, with their bees, but and another thing under new business. Keith's son, Eric, correct?
Yep.
Right. Keith's son, Eric, came to the club because he's an Eagle Scout, as some of you may
We're
know.
working towards the Eagle.
He's working towards his Eagle Scout. And he has come to us with a little project proposal. And what it is he is building a swarm trap. And it's up on a post, almost like a flag post kind of a deal. And there's some mechanics in it so that you can raise a swarm trap up however many feet, 10, 12 feet, whatever it's going to be, that kind of deal. So you don't have to climb any ladders and nobody has to worry about standing on a bucket to try to reach it in a tree or however that everybody tries to put up their swarm traps. I see Lindy smiling, so she must have done something like that, right?
Got all kinds of creative things. Yep.
That's right. So Eric contacted myself and I contacted the officers in the club. And we allocated some money towards this proposal. Let me get to the page here. It's all very detailed. He did a very good job on this presentation. And it has the cost page in here somewhere. Give me just a second. All right, preliminary cost estimates for materials is about $400.
Nice.
Some of the supplies is $30. Tools he's gonna rent from his dad. No. And then some other miscellaneous things. So the total cost come to $480 to do his project. And we talked about it and he's gonna set it up at Tidewater, Keith?
Yep.
So he's gonna set up this little project over to Tidewater where our club hives are. So as the officers, we looked it over and gave the okay on it. So we're gonna pay for his little project for this. Yes, we're donating it. So does anybody have any questions on that? It's pretty lengthy or else I'd email it to everybody. I got the short version here and it's still like 9 pages, 10 pages. But we thought it was a worthwhile project and actually, I think I got a picture of it here, I think.
Well, I'm sharing to the screen.
Oh, you're gonna share it? Okay, perfect.
Not the proposal, but the picture of the.
The picture, yeah. Can everybody see that?
Is he gonna
Yes.
do a hive stand as well, or is he just doing the swarm trap?
Building another hive stand, same as we already have.
Yep.
And then the swarm trap is basically, have you seen the flag poles that you can pull the pin and lower it down?
Right, yep,
It's that with like a 12-foot 4x4 and a pivot on the top of it and basically a set of saddlebags to hold a pair of nukes on either side.
Oh, so it pivots. So as you
Got
lower the
it.
flagpole down, the traps
Right,
stay
the-
upright.
A horizontal
Yeah.
or vertical.
Oh,
That's
I
always
like that. I
tricky
wish
when
we
you
could-
have that bucket on a stick, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I need to talk with Pamela Hargis, but in the past, when they've swarmed pretty much to the same spot for the clustering. And we could probably put this up in that spot.
What a great idea. I love the ability to lower it. I've had the good luck of catching trapping a swarm in a hive way up in the tree. And then getting it down was a bugger. It was very heavy. I like
Even
this
if-
idea.
Kind of the thing about it is, even if it doesn't catch any swarms, it's a demonstration garden. It's an educational area. We're showing best management practices by having swarm traps up and showing how you can do it where an individual that isn't wanting to go up ladders can do something and get it up in the air. So it's just, it's good visuals, even if it doesn't work at catching swarms.
Right.
Oh, what a great idea. And maybe recruit some young talent into the hobby, into the field. That'll be nice.
And he's partway through his you have to submit your project to your unit committee. He's gotten approval there. He needs to submit it to the district committee. He needs to do that and get his approval there. And once they approve it, then he's good to go. And he'll be graduating at MSSM at the end of May. So early June, if he gets all his approvals, he's going to, through my email, send an invite out asking for volunteers to show up and help do the build as well.
Great.
He'll be recruiting scouts to do it, and he'll be recruiting through the club as well for anybody that wants to come and help out.
Excellent.
I think I want
That's
to learn
great.
how to do that just for myself, because I think that'd be a good idea. I'm not getting any younger. I don't want to keep climbing ladders and trees.
And if for some reason the district doesn't, if he doesn't get off his duff and do it and get his approvals, we'll just build it anyway.
Yeah.
We just, he just won't make Eagle. But, it's something we should have. It's something that I wanted to get swarm traps up there, 8-9 years ago, and I haven't. So this is a way to get it done.
Perfect driving force for that.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Very exciting.
Yeah. Any other new business?
I have one more new business. I was over to Mark Cooper's place this weekend, and he has it's posted up there that he's gonna hold an open hive on June 18th.
Yes.
I did not notice the time on that. I apologize, but I will find that out so it can get out on the email or whatever. And I'm sure Mark will probably put it out as an invite too. I think it was on Facebook too. But for anybody that's interested and anybody that's ever been to Mark Cooper's open hives knows that he holds a pretty good open hive. And there's plenty of hives there and plenty of room, so there's no problem with that. Any questions? And any of the newbies, I would recommend going to an open hive. Because it's you can gain just so much knowledge of just seeing things and asking questions of all kinds of beekeepers. And you ask one question, you'll get 100 answers. So you try to take away the best answer that fits for you.
Yeah, and the 100 answers is just from the first beekeeper.
Right.
Right.
Any other new business?
Chris,
All
just
right.
on the open hive, Chris, this is Andy. Is there going to be an email to that effect, or should we be writing that down?
I would write it down just in
Okay.
case, but I'm relatively sure there'll be an email. What I'm gonna do, probably tomorrow, or the next day, is I'll contact Mark and see what he's gonna have done.
I'm sorry, would you repeat the date and time? I wasn't
June
paying attention.
18th. I'm not exactly sure on the time.
Oh.
But again, like I said, I'll contact Mark
Okay,
and we'll get that established so that everybody will know.
thank you.
Yeah, we can have Lindy put it on the calendar.
Yeah, I was just looking at the date. It's the 18th is so yeah, that'll be an action-packed month for open hives. The 18th will be the Coopers. The 25th is going to be at Paul's at the Shaker Place. And then earlier in the month, we'll have an open hive at Tidewater, and Thalassa is going to host, and we're going to do some fun things there.
Good. I think,
That works though, because, you know, not everybody can make it to
right.
all
Right.
three, or
Yep.
may make it to one, to the others. But 200 plus members, it gives everybody an opportunity
Yeah.
at least, that hopefully will work with their personal schedule for one of the three.
Especially in the different places like that, scattered throughout, it does make it a little more
Exactly.
opportune for some people that are further away or whatever. That's good.
Exactly.
Any other new business? Anybody? New people? Any questions?
I have
Go ahead.
another question, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I don't want to ask them here, so.
Well.
When
you
you were
got a
here
lot,
when we introduced
pick out
new people, is
your
this your
two
first
most
meeting?
important ones and then shoot 'em
No.
out.
Okay.
About these or about the club?
Either one.
Um, I guess one big question I had, and I've been reading, and you talked about the 100 different answers, been reading online. Is it good to treat for mites prophylactically, like before they're a problem? Like, should I wait till I get to a threshold number? Or should I just be doing it now before population build up?
That would be, I would say, watch your bees, and you should be testing your bees and monitoring them, like they said on here, like the Sentinel program, like monthly,
Okay,
and just check your bees, check your bees. And once you start seeing them, like say for instance, when you do your half a cup and bees, which is approximately 300 bees, you do your alcohol wash, strain it out.
yeah,
If you see any mites, I don't care if it's 1 or 10, I personally would treat. Everybody else has their own kind of thing on that.
Yeah.
But if you're seeing mites in a wash, they're there,
and they will eventually
and
multiply.
you should treat. Yeah, because they're going to multiply fast. They're worse than rodents. They multiply fast. So if you're seeing mites, treat. And then there's all kinds of different treatments out there you can use depending on what's going on. So like say if you have your honey supers on, there's some stuff you cannot treat with because it'll taint your honey and make it no good, at least for human consumption.
Mhm.
Then there's some that are okay to do while your honey supers are on. Most people, they like do a treatment early in the spring because there's some of them that needs like 45 days before you can put supers on.
Mhm.
So they'll treat early in the spring just to knock the numbers down. Put your honey supers on, and then they, when the big flow was done, so to speak, the first flow, they took the supers off, and you're gonna be checking anyways,
Mhm.
and then you would treat again, and you treat through, and then in the fall, they got another flow in the fall, so you can put your supers on again in the fall, take them off, and then definitely treat in the fall, because you want your hive to be as strong as possible going into the fall, because those winter bees are your important bees to get your hive through. And you need to make sure those numbers are knocked down to nothing if possible, which is never possible to be nothing completely, but the better you can knock them down and make your hive healthier going into the winter, the more chance you're gonna have it in the spring. And then come the spring, you'll start right back up again with the treatments.
Okay,
We can hit that.
Does that sound good to everybody?
all right.
All right, nobody said no, so I guess we're good. What was your second question?
Well, I can't remember, but
Mhm.
that was a very good answer.
You're welcome. I did not introduce
Hi, I'm Melissa Marr.
your new beekeeper.
I am not.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome anyway.
Thank you.
She came in a little bit late, which is fine.
Because, it's hard to find our right way in today.
That's right, exactly. Because today we had to come in different doors because our normal door you can't come in because of the construction. So, all right.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. All right, we move on to our speaker. Talk about pesticides.
Pesticides. Hi, my name is Karen Snyder, and a couple of you I recognize, Keith and Janet. I've been a keeper now 3-4 years. The last couple of years I haven't been attending because I am on the City of Portland's Pesticide Management Advisory Committee, and I'm now chair. So, and it's on the exact same night, first Tuesday every month at the exact same time. So I haven't been able to attend this for quite a while. But because of my pesticide experience, I'm pretty knowledgeable. I'm getting knowledgeable on the status of the pesticides, synthetics, organics, and what I plan to do tonight. I think it was, Lindy, was it last year that someone had 3 pesticides and they did not know where to look and did not know what they were, and then I gave some instruction. I think it was last
Yeah,
year.
they were gonna be spraying, I think they were spraying moths in Deering Park, I believe, was the issue. So
Oh, was that the issue?
a
Oh, I
flutter
don't know where
of-
it was. I thought it was somewhere else. So
that was one of them. Could have been.
I think it was something else, because that would have been a red flag for me on Deering Oaks.
Okay.
So, and then Lindy has, we've just been touching base for the last couple months. And so now I'm ready to present. And what I will be presenting is a lot of data, a lot of where to go if you're interested. You could be insomniac and you may want to look at this at night. I'll pass it into the Google email after this meeting, and then you can, if you want, use it as a guide or as a reference. So, so I can share, right?
Should be able to, yes. If not, let me know.
Karen, if people ask questions in the chat, do you want to do that as you go or wait till the end, or?
I'm pretty casual about it. You can even I'm not even gonna look at chat. I don't think I can see
Okay.
it in full screen. So just, take,
Great.
ask me a question before you forget. It's gonna be pretty, casual. So it may not look it, but it's casual. So what I'm going to present tonight is the background on pesticide regulatory usage at the federal, state, and local level, and then how to find pesticide product hazards. Presenting tonight. Actually, I've switched the two. I don't want to bore you with the background on pesticide regulatory usage. I'm going to do the how to find pesticide product hazards first. Table of contents, I'll give you my background, snapshot of the synthetic pesticide usage in the US, how to find pesticide product hazards in the United States, background on pesticide regulatory at the federal, state, local level, any pending legislation on pesticides at the federal, state, local level, my conclusions, and the summary of the sources that I've used. Background of myself, I'm an organic gardener, landscaper. I've been a beekeeper for, I think, 3 or 4 years now in Portland, Maine. I am AOLCP certified, and that's the accreditation of organic land care professional from NOFA, which is the New England Organic Farming Association. For the last 3 years, I've been a member of the Portland Pesticide Management Advisory Committee, and then end of last year I was elected to the chair. So the snapshot of synthetic pesticide usage in the US. So the years are kind of fragmented because I kind of was, I read Silent Spring, Rachel Carson, and I was like, oh, she was giving a list of the pesticide pounds that were being used in 1947. And when she wrote Silent Spring in 1961, it was a wake-up call to Americans about the environment and the usage of pesticides. So, you know, think about it. That was over, what, 62 years ago now. So I thought it was interesting. I did some, you know, I'm data oriented. So I did some trending as far as, so the first 2 years came from Rachel Carson's Silent Spring. This is what she said was reported. And then interestingly enough, I couldn't find anything later than 2017 from the EPA side. So 2008 to 2012, there were 1.1 billion, yes, billion pounds of pesticides used annually between those 3 years. And then 2017, it really didn't change much. It's still 1 billion pounds were used. I also, though, presented the population of the United States just to see, like, you know, percent wise, double, triple based on the population because of, you know, agriculture, commercial agriculture. The one thing is that, you know, Rachel Carson, you know, did indicate in Silent Spring, which is, as I said, the wake up call, and that's actually what founded the EPA, is that the needle doesn't seem to move much on the pounds being used. It's still like up there. But the one thing that a report came out on The Guardian in April 2021, and it said the pesticides have a higher toxic, even though like in Europe, the level of pesticide usage is down. It's not here in the United States, but the toxicity, the concentration of pesticides, synthetic pesticides is up. So it really kind of, you know, the needle hasn't moved to eliminating synthetic pesticides. In the US, the volumes actually have gone up, and that's a little concerning if the concentrations within the synthetic pesticides has gone up as well. So that's kind of the state of what I've seen. And it was interesting that I couldn't find on the EPA site anything past 2012. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but we'll just go with that. So how to find pesticide product hazards in the US. The EPA site is usually the most valid and accepted site to be used since, you know, there's a lot of nonprofits sites that analyze pesticides like Beyond Pesticides, Nature, OMRI, but it's always better to go if you're presenting data from the EPA site because you want the pro-pesticide people not to complain about biased information, which can be said or would be said about Beyond Pesticide or OMRI. So it's always better to go to the EPA site to find the data on environmental hazards of products. And what I do is, oh, did someone say something? And what I do is I always, and then there's other sites, the other organic sites, which is in number 2, which is Beyond Pesticides, OMRI, and pesticide nature search results. If you want to look for a pesticide substitute from a synthetic to an organic. OMRI, the Organic Material Review Institute, is, if you see on your neem oil or whatever you're using on an OMRI, OMRI, that is labeled an organic pesticide, and it's just less toxic than the synthetic. So for instance, like last year, there was like 3 products that someone wanted to know what the environmental hazards and what it actually affected. So the best site to go to is this site right here. And you just, on this documentation I can send you. This is the EPA, it directs you directly to the EPA site. Now, you could, you know, this site's a little finicky. So what I did is I kind of had to see what, you know, how to navigate. And once you learn, it's pretty easy to get through. So for instance, you're really only going to use, you're either going to know the EPA number or you're either going to know the product brand name. There's a it seems like there's a billion product brand names out there now. So, so what I do is sometimes you can use, if you have the EPA number of this product, you can just take out all the number signs, pound signs, and just put the numeric with the dash. Now, if that doesn't work, then you can go down to the product brand name to find this pesticide. And what's interesting about this is that it comes up when you go to that site and you slowly type in, like, I'm going to put an Advion. You notice it starts coming up with products. So if you slowly start putting in a name of a pesticide, a pesticide brand name, like the first one letter, the second letter, to see if it starts popping up, you can find a product like by the brand name. And then you're like, oh, okay, it was the Advion ant gel that I'm looking at. So you can take that, hit enter. And then this is the information on that pesticide. If you have that information, it tells you what the EPA registration number, the company name, where it's located. But what I'm really focused on is I want to know what the environmental hazards are on this pesticide. And usually it's the top one, the top report, accepted data if they modify the report. So I always click on this, the top one, the top report number. And then this is the EPA's information on it. And kind of what I do is I just like, I primarily look at the environmental hazards. And if you just use the search on the this little microscope, no, it's not a microscope, magnifying glass, you can do a search on, and then you can find out, okay, oh, this Advion ant gel is toxic to fish and aquatic invertebrate and do not apply directly to water. So you can find pretty much any pest, you can find, if you can get to that previous screen and you can pop up with something, you can find pretty much anything on the EPA site, and then you put in the search engine your environmental hazards, and it can tell you what kind of insect, mammal that is being affected by this particular pesticide. Sometimes if you put in, you know, like if you strip out the pound signs, you can put 1498 instead of the brand name. Sometimes I do that more easier, and it comes up with the same information. So it's either going to be the EPA number or the brand name. Now, sometimes you can't find it based on the information you're given. So what I do is, so we talked about that. Those are the two tips on which search engine. This is how to find the environmental hazards. This is the search engine. Sometimes, like, for some reason, when someone tells you a pesticide, they're not going to give you the EPA number, or for some reason the product brand name's not coming up on the EPA website. Then you use your friend Google, and you just Google, like, for instance, I couldn't find cue ball because it needed a dash or something. It wasn't on the EPA side. But when I Googled and looked up cue ball, what I noticed is like, aha, there's the EPA number. Oops, right there. So let's see if I get to it. My screen's all kind of warpy. So there's the EPA number 228-744. 744. So then I can go back to the EPA site and put 288-744. Oh, well, what was that at? 228-744. And then this shows up the cue ball information, and then the latest EPA information on it, and then environmental hazards. And then this particular synthetic pesticide is detected in groundwater, they come up for the water tables, keep out of it. So it's a water aquatic hazard. So that is I mean, this is really the only valid website that you can really look up pesticides and know that it is the information that you're going to get that is acceptable to I mean, it's part of the EPA, and this is the information that the way I look up the pesticide information on products that I don't understand. You can find synthetics, you can find organics on here, and then you can go from there. Now, and that's the information. So that's basically, it seems like a lot of information, a kind of like clunky way to look at it, but it's literally, you know, like for a couple of years, on the PMAC, we were trying to find an easy way when we did our annual pesticide reports, because in the city of Portland, we do pesticide monitoring, and the best way we could find the EPA number was to do that particular information. Now, so to give you a background, so that's kind of the best way to look for pesticides, but to give you a background on the levels of pesticides, federally, state, and local, I'll give you just a little bit of a lot of information on the federal level. So the EPA, as I mentioned earlier, is to regulate the pesticides in the US, and it was founded in 1970. And the jumpstart of the EPA was because of Rachel Carson's book. It was 1962, called Silent Spring. And she was just giving a foretold warning of the indiscriminate use of pesticides in this country. Now, since EPA was founded in 1970, unfortunately, there have been only 141 pesticides that have been stopped being used in the US. So, you know, that's like Agent Orange kind of stuff. The EPA has only outlawed 37 of them, and 5 were withdrawn in the past 18 years. So, and then pesticide companies have chosen to remove 97. So the EPA is not really banning these synthetic pesticides. They're hoping that a voluntary cancellation by chemical companies is happening. Now, what's concerning, what we found out, or I stumbled across, was the 2019 report. And it came out and it compared the 4 largest commercial agricultural countries in the world, US, EU, which is Europe, China, and Brazil. And what they found is that the EU, 25% of the pesticides that were in the EU were still being used in the US. And even in Brazil and China, they compared 500 pesticides, and then even 17 pesticides were banned in Brazil, but they were still being in the US. So that was kind of surprising to several of us that you know, Brazil and China were actually banning pesticides that were being still used. So that's kind of the status of globally how pesticides are being managed across these 4 large countries, or EU, which is a conglomerate of countries. So, but what this report says is that the US EPA kind of has abandoned its use of non-voluntary cancellations in the recent years. And so it's really kind of not, EPA is not doing their, doesn't really have, they don't have that very good regulatory authority to completely ban pesticides in this country. It's more of a voluntary by the chemical company. At the state level, and that's why, because pesticides are not banned at the federal level, that means each state has to try to do something. And so there's a very inconsistent way across this country that pesticides are being regulated. In Maine, there are 2 statutes that give the Maine Board of Pesticide authority to regulate pesticides in the state of Maine. And one is the 1975 Pesticide Control Act, and the latest one is the Maine Board of Pesticide Control Law. However, unfortunately, in 2016, this law was gutted. The BPC, the Board of Pesticide Enforcement, the reporting and notification, the return of pesticide containers and chemical control of vertebrate animal sections were repealed in 2016, and they really have not been put back yet. And that's unfortunate. However, and I'm probably all of you are kind of becoming more aware, PFAs, the forever chemicals, our exposures on the farms are taking really front stage right now with the DEP. And like right now, there's like 6 PFAS bills pending in legislation. So that's kind of taken the focus off of pesticides in the state of Maine, is the PFAS issue that has been happening. Now at the local level, and because of the fact that every state regulates pesticides differently, and even at state level may not be strong enough for certain communities, there are 31 communities in Portland, in Maine, that have pesticide ordinances. And actually, there's only 190 cities in the United States. Now, granted, there are 10,000 incorporated towns in this country that ban, restrict, or prohibit pesticides in one variation or another. Because a majority of the synthetic pesticides, like Roundup, are not banned federally. So, but there are movements across the country, and Portland and South Portland are used as benchmarking examples for other parts of the country. And we get a lot of inquiries about our pesticide ordinance. But ironically, it's Blue Hill, Maine that actually has the most restrictive pesticide ordinance, because they ban even selling synthetic pesticides. But it is easy in Blue Hill, Maine, because there's no corporation change like Lowe's or Home Depot. So theoretically, Blue Hill, Maine has a stricter one just because they ban the sale, but Portland is kind of considered the leader actually in this country with the pesticide ordinance and managing monitoring it. In 2018, Portland did pass this pesticide ordinance. However, 2016 was when South Portland passed theirs, and Portland's was kind of mimicked off of South Portland. And not surprising, November 2020, South Portland approved, they modified their pesticide ordinance to be a land care management ordinance. And that was to include fertilizer restrictions and tree ordinance. Now, so pending bills federally, I'm not going to go through these bills, but there are 3 major bills that they're trying to get through federal right now. And you know, Saving America's Pollinator Act, which is to, you know, stop the decline of the pollinators. So this one may be of interest to you. And this is sponsor is a Democrat in Oregon. And their interest, I know that Beyond Pesticides, who tries to, you know, advocates for organic ways to manage insects and pollinators and to protect the pollinators. This one and this Protect Americans' Children from Toxic Pesticides are one of the 2 most important bills for pesticides regulations in this country. And weirdly enough, though, this particular bill still does not ban Roundup, and just that doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, so those are the 3 bills. Now, this, like, you know, this is not static. Whatever's pending in legislation federally. So these bills will either, you know, fail or they'll be passed. We'll see. At the state level, there are 3 bills that are interest, and majority of, for instance, MOFGA, there's not really any pesticide pending bills right now. It's all the PFAS, the forever chemicals. So LD 1911, 2013, and the 875 are all the PFAS, because that has been a big problem in the state of Maine, as I'm sure you've read in the newspaper lately. Now, at the local level, Portland is currently revising its pesticide ordinance to a land care management to follow suit what South Portland did. As a beekeeper, I mean, I've become more acutely aware of how there are so many environmental hazards affecting the biodiversity in honeybees. And the three primary environmental hazards are pesticides, urbanization, and then the foreign invaders such as the varroa mite. And as I said earlier, it's really, if anyone hasn't read Rachel Carson, I highly advise. She was forward thinking 60 years ago to write Silent Spring, which was, basically what started the EPA in 1970. And as a summary, I provided all informational links for general pesticide information, all the organic pesticide information I use at the federal and state level for information. State level, MOFGA is ahead of its time. A lot of the regarding, mechanical methods to replace synthetic pesticides and to use organic. So I really, MOFGA is a head leader in most of this country. And NOFA, the Northeast Organic Farming Association, it's recognized, that certification is recognized by all the New England states. And that's a really interesting one as well, and really progressive in how they like to manage and they're very informational. You can log on with Zoom now. You can pretty much attend everything online, and it's just so interesting. So I really do like the Zoom on being able to access these workshops in these particular organizations. And yeah, and that is, any questions, anyone? Are people awake?
Yeah. Who was the writer, Rachel, who did the Silent Spring again?
That is Rachel Carson's Silent Spring. Let's see here. Right here, Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, written in 1962.
Cool, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Which pesticides are most lethal to honeybees?
Ooh, good question. I didn't even look that up. There's so much. I've been tracking in Europe. I mean, the neonics are really highly toxic. I mean, there's so much that actually affects the bees now. And Europe right now is way ahead of the US in banning Roundup. Even insecticides like weed killer Roundup, it completely it kills the bees. So the neonics and insecticides, and they're being banned in Europe right now. They're still being allowed in certain, majority of this country, it's still being allowed. The only, places that are restricting neonics and Roundup are like the 31 cities that have pesticide ordinances inside the in this state. So I don't, I'll have to look that one up, but I've never even pinpointed, because it seems like so much is toxic to the bees that I've even found out neem oil, which is supposed to be an organic pesticide, is still toxic. It's an organic pesticide. It is still toxic to the bees. So
that was another question, whether neem oil. I thought neem oil wouldn't be good for bees. Yeah.
Well, the trick on neem oil is, okay, so bees are very finicky, as you know. So if you're going to use neem oil, just do it before, do it and before they leave their hive in the morning, like 7 o'clock if you need to spray something. But also, as an organic gardener myself, I like aphids. You can get rid of aphids, Maine used to be 5 or 6 years ago, the rains came more regularly. And I noticed that I didn't really have aphids on my flowers near my hives. And then the last couple of years, it's been drought, and it's not been, regular rains, and I've gotten way more aphids. And I did accidentally spray some neem oil, and sure enough, it did kill a batch of bees because it was wet. So if you spray neem oil, just make sure it's kind of like after 5 or 6 when they go to bed, I say, and so it can dry in the evening overnight. Or like I do is I just kind of like try to spray down my perennials and my pollinator plants once a week if we're not going to get rain, and that'll knock back aphids.
Are there other means, like I know you can spray aphids, I kind of discovered that accidentally to get rid of them. Are there other things like that are like cucumber beetles? Is there some way to handle cucumber beetles and things like that are a real problem around here?
I actually, me and one of the PMAC members, we made this, we called it our organic pest matrix. And what we did is we buy pests and buy plant, because like bittersweets, multiflorals, and then invasives and pests. We provided a matrix that you can look it up and find, oh, okay, carpenter ants, how to organically get rid of them, how to mechanically get rid of them, how to give various options to what pests or invasive that it's trying to get rid of. And I can send that as well. It's kind of really complex. Nothing is easy. There's so many chemicals and pesticides now being sold by so many companies. And there's so many pests out there that there is not like just an easy website or way to find that information. As you saw, like for finding pesticide information on synthetics, the EPA says it's a little finicky, so you kind of have to do it exactly that way or you're never going to pull anything up. But I can send a matrix, and then you can just, look at whatever you're trying to get rid of and see if you can remove it organically.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Keep in mind with your gardening, especially with your vegetables and stuff like that, if you do companion plantings, that helps a lot with controlling your pests in the garden.
Yes, that's a very good.
Huge help. One of the biggest things that we put throughout our vegetable garden is marigolds. I couldn't tell you how many marigolds. We plant a bunch of marigolds throughout the whole garden, and that will help keep other bugs away and knock down the population of them, as well as rotating, if your garden is big enough, rotating where you plant things and stuff, because if you plant your tomatoes in the same place all the time, your tomato hornworms are going to go there every year. They're going to know where they can get their food. But if you've got a big enough area and you can move that around, they're not going to find it as much. And then some of your bugs, they'll eat a plant, then they drop into the ground to do their whole mutation or whatever they do. So when they come up the next year out of the ground, those plants are right there for their food. So they can go right onto the plant and get eaten again. So if you can rotate your gardens and stuff, that will help knock down on your pests. Some of the flower gardens, I know you're not going to dig up all the time and that kind of, I understand that, but a lot of times use a dishwater, dish soap and water solution too can help keep a lot of your bugs off your plants. And that's not at all. So
yeah, like dishwater soap, and sometimes I put a little garlic in mine, and that will I use that a lot. Dishwater soap and water and some garlic.
Oh, I have this recipe from a neighbor that's got garlic, but it uses soap too. I was using Murphy's oil soap. And
no. No.
It's just a tiny amount, but I have to because I'm afraid it'll hurt the bees.
Yeah.
But you can use dish soap and that's okay. You won't hurt your bees. You got to do it when they're asleep.
Usually, yeah. Ideally, you want the stuff to dry. So like when the bees go to bed, I say around, 5 or 6, my bees go to bed around 5 or 6, and I'll spray if I need to spray at night or really early in the morning. But I also find that like knocking back aphids and stuff around my garden, just, having some kind of water spray also will knock them out. So.
Okay.
What we use
Yeah.
is the Dawn dishwashing liquid with some water.
Yep.
That works really good.
Okay.
Yeah. And like, I use, white vinegar on like cracks for grass, to get rid of grass in between cracks of your flagstone or whatever. I'll just pour some vinegar at the evening and that'll kill it right off. So, I mean, like, so you don't have to use any weed killer or anything like that. So there's a lot of organic tricks that you can do. And that's kind of what we're trying to educate here in Portland is, like for instance, I pushed the no-mow, you've heard of no-mow May.
Yes, for the marigolds.
Yes. So I think, so I was I pushed that. And it's really easy because really it's just a social media little, cute little picture and say, don't mow for May, let the first nectar of the bees, the dandelions and people I think if you just provide people the education of why doing this, it's going to be they will accept it. And I'm actually going to push for no mow October as well, because I don't want parks and recs, because I know my bees are going after the Eastern prom to get their nectar. And, they got a lot of goldenrod and aster there and Japanese knotweed. And so I'm going to push for the, last fall, I got like 120 pounds of honey off of one hive. And it was like dark as molasses. And it was all the aster and the goldenrod and Japanese knotweed on Eastern prom. And I just, I'm going to promote here in Portland too, a no-mow October to get so that the bees that have hives, the people that have hives on Munjoy Hill can, get that last nectar before they mow for the winter.
Now, I had a question on your pesticide with the cities and stuff. You said Portland and South Portland have really good pesticide ordinances now. How does that affect the surrounding towns? Or can we as the surrounding towns put some of those ordinances in our towns?
The best way is to reach out to us. South Portland and Portland kind of do like we have a climate action team, and we do a lot of partnerships with South Portland as well. So the best is to reach out, and then or you could just Google our ordinances. And what we did is and just find our ordinance and tailor it to your municipality. And that's what we've been doing is, South Portland would compare to our ordinance and we'll compare to them. And then we'll just say, oh, we want this changed and, lessons learned. Whoever implements an ordinance first, we go and take and go, oh, no, we don't want that. We need to fix this. So we do we kind of share and benchmark from each other. And that's what I would recommend. And, anyone that wants input as to how to go about it, feel free to reach out to me in your town, because it's really, I kind of like to think, what did the gardeners and the beekeepers 100 years ago did? They didn't have all these chemicals out and synthetics, and they were very, creative. They were very savvy on how they managed, a lot of the insects back then, because there were a lot more insects back then, with all the pesticides that have been going on for the last 60 years, the biodiversity and the flora and fauna have reduced drastically in this country. So I just tried to, research a lot of things back then, and that's what we try to educate, people in Portland with these simple ways: no mow May, no mow October, and give them the reasons why. And usually we don't enforce this, we don't say you have to do this. We just educate. It's all about education and to get, people aboard. And because, I think everyone knows that the bees are in trouble. So, and people, once they're educated, they kind of buy into it. So
Karen, do the pesticide applicators have to follow these ordinances as well, or is it just the residences of the
no, the applicators have to.
of the town?
The commercial pesticide applicators have to submit a report, annual report to the city every year. And that's why I missed the, April and May, because we were compiling all the information for the annual pesticide report that I submit to the Sustainability and Transportation Committee, which is a subgroup of city councilors, and presented it in April. And then we made recommendations of how to improve our ordinance. And that is why I couldn't make the last two, present the last two, is because we were busy with it. But yeah, we had, this year we had 90 pesticide commercial applicators that apply pesticides in Portland, and they submitted reports.
And as an aside, your commercial operators are going to be less apt to violate the law because the fines are huge if they get caught, and they're under the eye of everybody.
Mhm.
What you really got to worry about are the actual residents that go out and they can go buy Roundup and spray it on their lawn.
Right.
They can go buy whatever and spray for the grubs and all that. But your commercial applicators are not going to do it because all they need is one person to call up to the state and say, hey, X pest control company sprayed, a lawn at this address with this chemical, and huge fine. It's not worth doing. So,
I live in South Portland where they have these laws, but you can still buy Roundup at Walmart and at Lowe's. And I saw a Roundup container on my neighbor's stoop, and I was like, oh my goodness.
yeah, anybody can still buy it. Anybody can still physically do it. They're violating the ordinance, and enforcement on a resident is a lot less effective than it is on the commercial companies.
Yeah, I mean, we use, Portland's pretty, lax actually on commercial applicators as well, because we've caught them. We caught several applying pesticides, and they put the sign out, and we're like, oh, they didn't apply for a pesticide annual report. So we call them up and we say we had to educate them because the problem also causes with the pesticide ordinance is that if they're outside of Cumberland County and they come into Portland, they can, they don't really pay attention to if there is a pesticide ordinance. Whereas most of the Cumberland County commercial applicators, they know that they're, South Portland and Portland has an ordinance. So the ones that we have troubles with are the ones that are not, address is not Cumberland County, because we can get the commercial pesticide applicators from the Board of Pesticide Control of who is applied in Cumberland County. The problem is the ones outside of Cumberland County. But that's interesting, Keith, that you said that there were big fines because, we just try to educate, say, oh, did you know there's a ordinance? Let us go through it with you. And, next time that you, apply anything in Portland, please apply for this ordinance or this application report. And they, they follow it, they comply once we educate them on it. So.
The reason I mentioned the ordinances and stuff like that, because just recently in Buxton, we passed an ordinance that none of the sludge and septage could be spread anymore. So which is hopefully going to help stop that PFAS, at least that way. And that was an ordinance change that was just brought to a public hearing a couple of weeks ago. And it goes to vote for the townspeople at the next, I think it's in the June.
Well, that's great.
So we've put that in there that there's no, and it's not just permitted, because in some areas it was permitted in the rural areas for the farms and stuff and some of the business commercial. But now it's not permitted in any zone in the town.
Yeah.
No spreading of the sludge or septage or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we're incorporating banning PFAS, sludge and biosolids in the, since we're updating our ordinance to become a land care management ordinance, which is incorporating trees, fertilizers, banning PFAS, and then updating our pesticide ordinance. And that's supposed to come to city council in June. So you're quicker at it. So good job, Buxton. I mean, ideally, we'd want the state to ban it across so that all the individual cities don't have to do it. So I guess we have to.
The other, not so much incident, but the other way we found that PFAS are kind of getting around, and it's not so much now with the newer technology, but the older technology of solar panels. Those are a big contributor to PFAS, and we've had a couple of solar farms come into town in Buxton that we were like right on them about using the newer technology so we don't have to worry about the PFAS. And then should there be an incident, they have a cleanup clause, so to basically in their agreement. So if any PFAS are found, then they are held responsible for cleaning that out of the system, whatever it takes. So
Well, I think I'm going to like pull your Buxton information, and since we like to benchmark other towns, I'm thinking we're going to put your PFAS information, because I don't think we've discussed the solar panel issues. So we may have to pull from your
yeah, one of our members on the planning board, he's a newer member, he's been there almost about a year now. He is right up to date on a lot of that stuff, and I like to call him our little environmental bulldog, because he's like right on it, and he brings.
That's great.
A lot of the PFAS stuff was new to us, so he brought that to our attention, and so when we had these solar farms come in, we had mentioned that to them, and they're like, "Oh, no, we use this new technology now," and like, okay, that you better.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Anybody else out there who has solar farms coming to their towns and they're popping up everywhere, go to the meetings and ask about that stuff. Be proactive in it.
Yeah,
and
be
just
persistent.
Pay attention to your towns. Look at their calendars, or when they're having different things posted, and when they're going to have these meetings, and go and put your words in.
Mhm.
It helps.
No, you have to. And like I said, if anyone is interested in trying to implement a pesticide ordinance in your town, reach out to me and I can provide you guidance and contact information to help alleviate any worries and, people may have, so just feel free to reach out.
You'll hear from me.
Great. Well, thank you. And I hope that was somewhat informative.
Thank you. That definitely gave us some more stuff to chew on that you don't always think about.
No, and it's a lot of information, and I mean, I've just gathered this through the last several years, and I just have all my links, and I like look at things, and that's why I have it in a document like that, and I could just send it to you guys and just use it as a resource or for the links. It's pretty comprehensive.
Oh, one last question. With the different like orchards, you got apple orchards all around. Do they have to log anything with the state or whatever when they're spraying their orchards?
Commercial, yes. Well, if it's a commercial applicator, yes. If it is the farmer themselves, so they have a right to spray their pesticides, but they have to keep the, and this is a contention at the state levels, because right now, the farmers that do spray their pesticides, they don't have a commercial applicator license. They have like a personal applicator license, I guess, pesticide applicator license, but they have to keep the records on site, which really doesn't help for the visibility as to overall holistically what is being sprayed, so there is missing information. I mean, all that the Board of Maine Pesticide actually has is the commercial application, data, not the actual personal farmer pest. I don't know what it's called, Keith. Maybe Keith can. There's a license where if you can spray on your land only, so it's not really commercial. It's like a personal pesticide applicator license. That's not being collected actually, because they just are supposed to keep the records on site, and then the inspectors come to their site to check it if they do. But as I said, in 2016, the ordinance in Maine was a little bit gutted, so.
I think that's a pretty big application. I would think that would fall under some kind of a commercial use, even if it's a private orchard. I mean, some of these orchards are hundreds of acres, and that's a pretty big area to be treating. And then what kind of drift do you have with that when they're spraying? I mean, that might drift to your neighbor.
It's called private.
Want to get to know your neighbors, right?
Farmers.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, there's a lot of contention. I mean, I was used as a resource. We were trying to wrap in the farmers, commercial farmers that spray their own pesticides, but there was such a kickback, a pushback that we just couldn't do it. I just couldn't, they just didn't, they didn't want to incorporate into the Maine Board of Pesticide and provide their annual reports. So there's contention going on right now regarding that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, they do still have to go through training like every 3 years. And like she said, they're required to keep records. They just don't have to submit them every year to the state. But the state gets reports from every commercial applicator, and it gets reports of all sales of pesticides in the state as well. That's an also a requirement.
Yeah.
But it's kind of how useful is it?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there is a missing pie piece. We don't know how big that pie piece is. So.
But if they do, you're a farmer, you spray, it drifts onto your neighbor's property, they are liable for that, and it's, it is watched for. And then once again, would be fined, et cetera. But
I mean, I guess the only good news is that Maine is ahead of most states. I mean, it's still kind of lacking, but Maine seems to be a little bit more proactive at the state level, and we have 31 out of 190 cities that actually have a stronger ordinance than restrictive pesticide ordinance than the EPA does. So we just hope that we can get other cities in Maine to follow and implement their own pesticide ordinance and just use our language. I mean, like, we have no, please copy it. Change the name, do a search engine replace, and change Portland to Buxton. Just fine with us.
Yeah.
they also, one other thing I'm just going to throw in here because it's very pertinent. Used to be you had to, if you wanted to be on the notification registry, if spraying was going to happen within 250 feet, I believe, of your property, there was an annual fee of, I believe, $20. That fee has been eliminated. So you can register, but you have to do it on an annual basis to be put on a registry, notification registry.
Yes, that's a good, yeah, forgot about that. So thank you for the reminder. But like I said, if there's any input, just please contact me. We can point you in the right direction.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You better go quick or more questions will come.
Yeah.
That's okay. Just email me. That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, everybody, any other questions
On anything.
on anything? Any of the newbies that have come tonight or were in? I see we're not too many of them. Looks like we only have about 9 people here now.
Yeah,
With the
we're dropping.
at present. Any questions? Did you remember your other one?
Yeah, so when I treat for mites, you can't open the hive for what I have is Formic Pro, so 2 weeks. So you should probably do a pretty thorough inspection beforehand, is that correct? You can't go in for 2 weeks.
Right.
You're also not supposed to have disturbed them for 3 days prior to putting the Formic Pro on.
Okay,
So
so you shouldn't even do an inspection right before.
no, at least, you know, it has to be 4 days or more, because Formic Pro it's pretty strong and it will affect your colony. And if it's already been disturbed, it could cause them to abscond. You know, it causes further issues. Depending, the Formic now is softer than it used to be. A lot of people, oh, Formic killed my queen, Formic killed my queen. A lot of times, yeah, their queen died, but they had too many mites before the Formic went in, and it was the straw that broke the camel's back. But just read the label, and you know, just like a commercial applicator, read the label. The label is the law, and the rules and the way it tells you to do it is there for a reason. You know, you go on a lot of these Facebook groups, and they're, you know, talking about off-label stuff, and yeah, sure, some of it works, but the label's the law, and you're not doing it the way that, you know, John down the street's telling you to do it.
So if you can't disturb them so many days before you put it in there, how do you put it in there? Because when you open
Well,
them up.
by
you put it in-
disturbing them, you know, pulling frames out, doing stuff like that. Basically, when I put Formic Pro on, I have checked, you know, a week or so ahead, so I know where my cluster is, because you want it above your cluster.
Right.
And what I do is I go in with my hive tool and one of those like 1x1 styles, like that you would have for a deck railing. I crack the box, I throw that in, push it into the middle, so I have a pivot, and my box is leaning forward. I throw one in there, I tilt it to the back, throw one in there, lift it up, pull the board out, bang, it's in the hive. You know, I'm in and out
of the cluster.
Yeah, above the cluster, because the fumes settle, and then the bees are going to move that around.
I see. Because in the directions I saw, it said in between the boxes.
Yeah, you know,
So
if
put it
your
under the
your
top,
box
yeah.
your box usually your cluster is going to be in more than one box. So in that aspect, yeah, put it in the middle. But if it is just in one box, you know, put it above rather than below.
So you're just popping your inner cover and setting it on the top above your cluster?
If you're doing it that way. If your cluster is, you know, like if you're doing it right, you're not going to be using Formic Pro right now. Your bees aren't strong enough.
Right.
You need 8 frames of bees to use Formic Pro. Any less than that, and your chances are you're going to kill them. So if you're in 2 boxes, you got 2 deeps, for example. I come in and I'll crack between those 2 deeps. I'll put my pivot in. And, you know, you could use anything. You can use a brick, use a 2x4, whatever. I just use those 1x1,
Yeah.
you know, because it's easy. You lift that box up. You don't have to take the whole box off, sit it on the ground. You just crack it, you stick that in there, and that allows you enough room to slide that pad in, rock it to the other side, slide the other pad in, pull it out.
Oh, good idea.
Bing, bang, boom. I'm all about easy when you're running 50 hives. You know, you find the efficiencies.
Oh, sure.
Does that work for you?
Yeah, well, if you were to treat it this time of year, what type of treatment would you suggest?
Early
Not Formic
treatment?
Pro.
February, Apivar, you know, is a good one. That's a hard chemical one though.
Yeah.
But it's a 45-day treatment, and it has to be off at least 2 weeks before you put your honey supers on. But and beekeepers in the past misused it, and the bees became resistant to it. So it was removed from the market for a number of years. It's back to being effective again. Don't know how long it's going to remain effective, but it's a great early spring treatment. Can't really put that on now because dandelion's going to pop anytime now. So,
They already are.
right now, you could use AppyGuard, you could use AppyLiveVar, you could use HopGuard. I don't care for HopGuard. It never worked for me. Other people swear by it. You could use oxalic, but oxalic only gets the phoretic mites. It doesn't get the ones that are capped behind. So we're at the point now, if you go in your hive now, you probably got a ton of brood already. So it's kind of behind the curve for oxalic. Although, once again, people are going off label and doing multiple treatments. That may change. The label has changed on oxalic some, but not to that point yet. But if I was doing it right now, I'd probably be doing AppyGuard, the gel.
And that one's, isn't
a
it
fine wall base.
AppyGuard is safe for the honey supers, isn't
No.
it? Or which one was it?
Formic Pro.
The former pro, okay.
Is
Gotcha.
Formic is good with supers on. And the oxalic with the new label, if you bought it last year and it doesn't have the new label, you can't use it on your honey supers, but the label's the law.
I have a question. I'm a brand new beekeeper and I'm getting a package Saturday. And from listening to Mike McNally last week, I figured I would wait 3 days, make sure the queen is okay, then do the oxalic, I don't know, vaping or whatever it's called, where you do the vapor in them, because I won't have any brood. Does that sound good?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky because if your queen is still caged, she can't get away from the vapors.
Right. I was going to make sure that the queen was out of her cage first.
Right. The sitting here saying follow the label, but I'm going to tell you.
Follow the what?
Follow the label, but you get your package, take your queen in her cage out of the package, put your package in a cardboard box or something, and vaporize it. You treat the bees at home, shake your package, put it in a cardboard box and vaporize it in the box.
Okay. I don't have to worry about vaporizing the queen?
No, you take the queen out.
Take the queen cage out of the package.
Right. But what about any mites that are on the queen?
The queen won't have any mites on her because her attendants keep her clean.
Right, they'll keep her clean.
They clean everything off.
Okay, so I can just take the package out and vape everybody.
Into your hive, go ahead and do your install. Put your queen in there. She's still in the cage. Wait till the next day. Screen or close off all your entrances. Pull your queen out, cage and all, and treat your hive. Wait half an hour and put your queen back.
Okay, that sounds good.
It doesn't say you can't do that. It just,
Right. But
it
keep
says treat when there's no brood.
keep your queen in a safe spot and out of the sun.
Yeah. In the shade
Okay.
somewhere. Then, like I say, about half an hour later, just put her back. Because oxalic is only really, toxic to the bee, to her really, when it's vaporized. Once that vapor is gone, once it's cooled off and formed back onto the surfaces, it's fine. And they have done studies where they're doing the oxalic at like 8 times the regulated dose without really harming the bees. So oxalic, and it's been used in Europe extensively for years. They've allowed it over there to be done with honey supers on for years. It's very benign to the bees. You'll vaporize them and they don't even care. Whereas you put in, you put AppyGuard in, you put HopGuard in, you put something else in, you are going to see a reaction in your bees. You do oxalic, they just don't care. It's like us walking through fog or something. But it is.
But it only works if you don't, it doesn't work if you have any capped brood.
Correct.
So I guess when you're, what's it called? When you're splitting your bees, you can sometimes do it.
Yeah.
And we've had whole talks on that. Yeah, if you're making a split and you're only taking uncapped brood, treat it. treat that. And the one that you left all the capped brood in, that's now queenless, and they're making a new queen, that all that capped brood is going to emerge. And as soon as the last capped brood emerges, you treat that one then too. And so you've treated both of them according to the label with no phoretic mite, or no mites that are under capped cells. And it's a really good knockdown that way.
Okay.
But you gotta think, she's laying 1,000, 1,500 eggs a day. And there's cells getting capped every day, and there's cells emerging every day. So if you go in and you do a treatment with oxalic and they're capped, you're gonna kill the majority of the phoretic mites that are in there at that moment. An hour later, more cells have come open, bees have emerged, and mites that were in those capped cells are now back on your bees again. So, you know, it's like washing dishes at a restaurant. You know, you can get to a point where everything's clean, but half an hour later, it's not clean anymore. But every bit you get knocked down is that many less that are going to go into a new cell and breed more. So it's, you know, treat early, treat often. It's a constant battle. The mites are the #1 killer of the bees.
Is it worth it to buy the vaporizing wand?
Say that again, the
Is
wand?
it worth it to invest in the, I think it's a wand that vaporizes the oxalic acid?
How many hives do you have and or plan on having?
Well, I don't have any yet. I'll have one, and I'll have to split it into 2 at some point.
1 or 2 hives, yes, the wand is perfectly fine. Because what the wand is a piece of aluminum that's been milled out, and it has a hole drilled in it with a diesel block heater in it that you hook to a 12-volt battery. That block heater heats up that aluminum, which causes your oxalic crystals to sublimate or vaporize. And what you do is you put it in there, you slide it in, you block all your entrances, you hook it to a battery, and it runs about 1 minute to 1.5 minutes. All that should be vaporized. You unhook it from the battery, you wait 5 minutes, you undo it, you pull it out, you close it back up for like another 10 minutes, and that's your treatment. If you have 1 or 2 hives, that's fine. If you have 50 hives or 20 hives or 10 hives, it takes too much time. There's other ways of vaporizing, they're just more expensive. But for a hobbyist with only a couple of hives, the wands are perfectly fine. The only caveat to that is people have lit their hives on fire, because if you get burr comb on the bottom of your frames and wax is highly flammable, you can start your hive on fire. So just be aware of that. Make sure when you slide it in, it's going in smooth. You're not, hanging up on wax when you're going in, or you can
You're
put a
sliding it
spacer
in.
there.
You're sliding it in the entrance.
Yeah, you're putting it in the front entrance.
Yeah.
There's
Do you
a
have
spacer that goes between your bottom board and your bottom super. I don't use them because it was just one more piece of equipment to buy. But that gives a little more of a gap, and it's better for ventilation.
Yeah.
You can do that, or if you have a screen bottom board, you can. There's all kinds of ways you can rig something up to make it not be. But mostly just watch your timing, and if it doesn't slide in easy, if you feel it hanging up on wax, move it, do it somewhere else, or come up with a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can, I'll look up the name of the board here, but unless, who else is here? Jack, do you remember the name of those?
He's muted.
He might not be listening, and he is muted.
I am listening, but I'm on another call for EAS. What was the question?
The boards that go above the bottom board but below the frames, that give a little spacer. Vertical slatted rack.
The slatted rack. Yep.
If you only have a couple of hives, get a slatted rack, use that, and that's going to give you that gap. So you're not going to worry about lighting your hive on fire with a wand. I don't personally use them. They're like $20 a piece. For 1 or 2 hives, that's not going to break the bank. Commercial guys don't use them, and I'm kind of a sideliner at that point. But a slatted rack will save your hive from catching on fire if you're using a lawnmower.
But do you need to leave it in there? Is it good for the hive to have it in?
It goes in, it just stays in. Slatted rack is installed between the bottom board and the bottom brood chamber. It says in the fall, it keeps the brood chamber warmer so the queen can blah, blah, blah. It just basically gives them, it's a mud room for the bees.
But they're not gonna like put wax all over it and propolis all over it?
Oh, because the spacing is such that they don't.
Okay,
The bee spacing is built in there. They usually don't build up onto them. I've only seen a couple that ever had any wax built up onto them.
Yeah, what you're basically doing is giving your hive a false bottom. So it's still as if you're using a bottom board. The bottom board is that natural gap. The slatted rack just raises your bottom board up, but still keeps the hive in contact so that they don't have to propolize it or make ladders to get up.
okay,
That's that new bottom board, but it's just slatted.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll do a screen share here and show you one.
I actually use them on most of my hives because most of them are in windy areas. So I like that extra gap that helps keep them so that the queen will lay brood lower into the hive.
Right, yeah, because that's the other thing, especially if you've got a screen bottom board and you don't keep your insert in, your queen will not lay in probably the bottom third of your bottom box. Because the wind is, you get a draft through there and she'll just avoid it. So if you are running a screen bottom board and leaving it open, do a slatted rack because that's going to give a little more distance and allow your queen to lay down there.
Can you see that picture? Is she still there?
Sorry, I
Yeah.
muted myself. Yes, I do see it. That looks good. It sounds like, I mean, it's not gonna, like you said, it's not gonna break the bank. It sounds like it's gonna be good for me, except I'm gonna do all 8 frames. I assume they have 8 frame ones. Yeah, there's one right there.
They
8
do.
frames.
Yep.
Yeah, they've got it.
Are you on Amazon?
No, I'm just Googling, but
Oh.
you can get it at all the major bee suppliers. You can get them locally. Where are you at?
I'm in South Portland. I haven't even bought my hive yet. I was supposed to buy a hive tomorrow. I was gonna go up to Backwoods.
Chris has them. I know Phil has them. And if they don't, you can get them from Humble Abodes in Windsor. You can get them through the mail. They're really not bad.
Yeah.
I'm just cheap.
There's another place in Wyndham, isn't there? Like Cooper's or something?
Yeah, but he doesn't make slatted racks.
Okay.
He makes
They
solid
make all
wood,
their-
but not slatted racks.
Right. If they don't use it, they don't make it.
Right.
Okay. So what's his name?
Cooper's. It's Cooper's Charolais.
Yeah, Cooper Chalet Farm.
The other one, the Backwoods is Chris Rogers on Page Road.
Right.
Yeah, and Mark, the Coopers, Charlet Farm, that's where the open hive is being done on June 18th.
Oh, too cool. Good.
So if you can attend that, then you can ask him questions, and I'm sure he'll have the store open for anybody that needs to purchase whatever he might have.
Okay.
And if you go to the Maine State Beekeepers website, there is a list of beekeeping resources.
That's
So
right.
all the different beekeeping suppliers in Maine,
Right.
national ones as well. But right here, beekeeping equipment in Maine. And support your local suppliers.
Yeah, that's what I want. I wanted to buy one from here, something from Maine.
Right. Because they all have wealths of knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah, I know I could ask him 100 questions. And also, I know
Right.
everything's gonna fit because they make everything to fit right. I'm afraid something else won't fit together.
All right, well, I think it's time for us to close up,
Yeah.
Thank you.
If
right?
you- If you have
Thank you
any,
all for what you do.
if you have any other questions, feel free to put it out on the club's email list. Because everybody's willing to give you answers.
And like anything, it's been said, you're gonna get, answers to all kinds of things that may be in opposition. Listen to everybody and then make your own decisions. The best way to learn
So
to
this is a
be.
form. You just write an answer. You just write a question out in the email.
Yep, and you'll get several replies, maybe not right away, because people might not check it every day. Some people do, some people don't. And, go to the open hives, be a bee buddy with somebody. The more hives you get to look at, the more things you're gonna see. I started out with 2 hives and I worked a funny shift, so I was always available middle of the day, and people are like, I'm having this problem with my hive. And I would go and I would look, and if I knew, I would tell them. If I didn't, I knew who to call. That's how our mentor program works. And the more hives you look in, the more you're gonna see, the more you see, the more you're gonna learn.
Yes.
And don't be afraid of making mistakes.
I
Because
did go
you're
to the
gonna make,
open hive.
and there's enough people in the club that have supplies. If you killed your queen, there's queens available somewhere. If your hive is crashing and you need more bees, I don't do it for the honey. I do it for the bees. I make and sell bees when I can keep my hives healthy enough. Because I'm on a different shift now, and I never did my mite treatments in the fall. I never winterized my hives. I expected them all to be dead in the spring. I only lost 1 out of every 4. So, did pretty good for not taking care of my bees.
That's a good year.
Saying, it's been, the winter was weird, and a lot of people watch your hives because they are going to swarm in the next couple of weeks. The winter
Will they
was weird.
swarm? Will they
Hives are-
swarm even if I just start packages this Saturday?
Yours probably won't, but you need to watch for them to abscond or to replace their queen. Because a lot of packages, anything that happens wrong in a hive gets blamed on the queen, and the package process is something wrong for the bees. So you get those bees into your hive, feed, feed, feed. Do not let them run out of syrup. Just keep them fed until all your comb is drawn out.
Okay.
And ask questions. Ask questions.
And if you need help, shoot me an email.
All right, we're gonna shut down here because they need to lock up the building.
All right. Good night.
I know.
Hey, I got a